Hi everyone, welcome to KIN 335, Historical and Cultural Foundations of Sport and Kinesiology in America. My name is Asia. I'm going to be your instructor for this online course. Just a little bit about me, just in terms of how to get a hold of me this semester. This is my email. As you can see, Blevins is my maiden name, but my email did not change nonetheless. And so just make sure that you type in anastasia.blevins@csulb.edu. My office hours for this semester are going to be Wednesdays from 11 to 2 in KIN 17. If any of you have been to the kinesiology building, it's kind of right in that main courtyard as soon as you get in, or by appointment. I understand that this is an online class. A lot of you are doing other things, and so if that time doesn't work with you, just send me an email. We can set up a Zoom call or another time to get together if you have any questions. In terms of my educational background, I got my Bachelor's of Science at UCLA in psychobiology. Really liked the idea of marrying biology with thought and motivation and sport specifically. So I came here to Cal State Long Beach and got my master's degree in sport and exercise psych in the kinesiology department, and I've been teaching ever since. Personally, I love sports. I am a former aquatics athlete, played water polo, swam, but now I've shifted more into an exerciser and really love to watch baseball and football, which fall is really fun for me because both of those sports are kind of happening at the same time, and so it's really exciting. I love to travel. Just this past summer, my husband and I went to Hawaii. We went to the Grand Canyon. I went to Catalina with some friends. So I really like to travel. I really enjoy going to the gym, and I'm sure every once in a while you're going to see my dog Poppy pop up. So she's my pride and joy. She's kind of just like hanging out right now, if you could kind of see her here, but she loves to make herself known in a lot of my lecture videos. So if you see me petting her, that's what I'm doing. In terms of my research interests, I very much found a home in the sociology history side of sport. I started a lot of work with my thesis with athlete objectification, really kind of looking at intersectionality, how our different identities create this very unique lens of the world of sport. With that, in 2020 with BLM, really focusing a lot on anti-racism interventions in sport and focusing on weight bias more recently. So again, that's a little bit about me, but let's go ahead and get into our class syllabus. Things for us to keep in mind as we go forward into this semester. So first and foremost, this is an asynchronous class. We will sadly never meet in person unless you come to office hours or we do a Zoom call. But I really tried to make this class very tangible, approachable for folks doing things on their own time while still not getting overwhelmed with a lot of information all at the end of the semester. And so because we will not be meeting in person, your Canvas page is your best friend for success in this class. I am teaching 2 sections of 335 this semester, so either you're in the darker blue or you're more in the teal blue section for my Brooklyn Dodgers National League pennant champions from this era that we'll be going over in this class. Everything you need is in these Canvas modules, the syllabus, lecture, videos, the slides, assignments, rubrics, as well as your grades. And please keep track of your own grades. Like I said, we don't meet in person, so I don't really get an opportunity to remind you to make sure that we're doing assignments on time if we have any questions about things. So just keep that in mind for this class. The due dates are not adjustable. I very much pride myself on giving students everything they need day one to be successful in terms of when things are due, my expectations. So please let me know if you anticipate any conflicts of when things are due. That being said, there are 2 assignments in this class where I like to extend a life happens policy, a 24-hour, no questions asked, late policy for our papers and our reflection videos, which we'll get into more details about what those 2 things are later in the video. But that being said, I realize that, you have stuff going on, and with an asynchronous class, sometimes things maybe fall through the cracks. And so I understand that, I still want you to be successful. I still want you to demonstrate your learning in this course. And so those are really the only 2 opportunities to extend this 24-hour late policy. But again, let me know if you have any questions about that. If after 24 hours you don't communicate with me, there is a 50% deduction applied. But again, if you're communicating with me, maybe we can work something out where things still get turned in at a reasonable time. If I don't hear from you after 48 hours, papers and videos are not accepted. So again, this policy only applies to your papers as well as the videos, which we'll get into more detail about that, and does not extend to your weekly quizzes or the 2 exams throughout the semester. I aim to respond to emails within 24 working hours, meaning if you email me on the weekend, I probably won't respond to you until Monday. I like to give myself my weekend, setting those boundaries. But if you don't hear from me within 2 school days, 48 working hours, please send me a follow-up email. Come to office hours. You can message me through Canvas. It all comes to my email, so we can get in contact there. In terms of kind of scheduling, we're gonna get into that in a moment, but the PowerPoint and lecture videos are gonna be available on Monday. You have the entire week to watch them and review before you attempt your quiz, which is due every Friday. And again, to succeed in this course, please follow the class calendar. It's located at the end of the syllabus. If you follow the syllabus that Canvas creates, it does a pretty good job of kind of pacing things for you to kind of just plan your semester. Please stay up to date with the course schedule, due dates for our quizzes, exams, papers, and reflection videos. And again, the due dates are not adjustable, but please let me know if you anticipate any conflicts or concerns with things in the semester. Some of the course outcomes, again, this is very much a unique kind of class that kinesiology does. It's kind of one of the lost arts of kin, just because it's more of a humanities-based class. And so a lot of these course outcomes are going to be much more focused on culture, society, growth and ebbs and flows of power, and very much still in a sport-centric space, but kind of beyond these constructs of what we consider sport or physical activity today. And so we're going to be analyzing the meaning of sport and leisure for Native Americans and immigrants during the colonial period. We'll get a lot more of that next week. We're going to be talking about race and ethnicity and how those two identity factors impacted sporting opportunities, comparing and contrasting sport and leisure activities between different socioeconomic classes, the role of sport and exercise and the shifts that happened during the major 4 centuries of the United States, comparing and contrasting in which science, religion, and cultural beliefs between gender, education, and physical activity all kind of have an interplay on one another. We're going to analyze the ways in which sport has been influenced by the military-industrial system, as well as other things kind of coming along with nationalist identities. We're going to be describing roles of American sports heroes, how media had a role in creating those sports heroes, and how commercialization really changed sport into what it is today. Understanding sport just in terms of what it is by definition goes beyond performance, and really do kind of tackle these issues of power, social mobility, and really ways for us to learn the tools on how to think and make informed and critical choices about how we interpret and perceive sports in society today. And so we're going to learn a lot of different things, and our textbook is really a good resource for you. I will only be kind of testing you on in quizzes and exams. I will only be testing you on things that I cover in our lecture videos and PowerPoints. That being said, the textbook is a phenomenal resource if you have any questions, if you want to get more detailed explanations about things that I maybe don't go over, not in as much depth during my lecture videos. So these are our GEM textbooks. I primarily teach from the 2nd edition. I think the 2nd edition is a bit more informative. It has more details. I like the pacing of it a little bit better than the 3rd edition, but either one of these editions is fine. Just don't use the 1st edition. It's very outdated. That being said, if you do use the 3rd edition, some of the chapters don't align perfectly with the 2nd edition. So please make sure that you are on pace with the decades that we cover in the syllabus, not necessarily by the chapter, but by the decades that are covered. So again, all of that is in our syllabus. So again, this is what I mean by GEMS. If you see in the syllabus, GEMS chapter 1, this is the GEMS textbook. We also have another optional textbook. If you like history as more of a reflective piece as to why sports are the way they are today, this is a really good kind of auxiliary text for you. If you're really interested in sociology, culture, and how things have kind of evolved more recently, this is a really good contemporaneous textbook that I have as an optional assignment. I do assign some chapters from this text, but I already have uploaded them to Canvas, the select chapters that you'll need for the success in this course. But if you're interested in it, I think it's a phenomenal text. This is kind of what I really enjoy in my kinesiology space. So this was a really informative piece of work for me in my passions for what I do. That being said, we are also going to be watching some documentaries on our own. All of the links for these documentaries are on on the syllabus. And you'll need to watch these on your own. They will be on the quizzes, so please keep up with the readings, that I will be lecturing from, as well as the documentaries assigned each week. And these are just a couple of snippets for what those documentaries are. If you haven't gathered already, this is a class that covers a lot of sensitive topics. Again, we're going to be looking at the implications of sport all the way from 1450s to 2026. So there's going to be a lot of discussions around issues of race, ethnicity, gender, sexuality, disability, exploitation, and different types of abuse. So if you feel concerned going into this class about a specific topic, you're more than welcome to express those concerns with me privately. I want this to be a space of openness and learning, acknowledging that the reason why we talk about these difficult things is because we need to learn from what has happened in history, and with the altruistic ideal to not repeat those same instances of abuse. But again, nonetheless important for us to learn from as we go forward into our space of kinesiology. So for the overview of assignments and grading, this is a straight 200-point class. There are 13 weekly quizzes with 5 points each. There are 3 papers with 15 points each, 2 reflection videos, 15 points each, 1 midterm, and 1 final for 30 points each. This is a straight scale class. There are no curves. There are no extra credits besides the one that I will be going over later. Please don't email me December asking for these things. Please keep up with dates. Please keep up with assignments. Or better yet, email me throughout the semester if you have concerns with these things and not just in December. I want to help you succeed. So the first thing that we do every single week is a weekly quiz. And this is with dual purposes. One is a knowledge check, just to make sure that you're keeping up with the lectures, making sure that you're watching the documentaries. But the other part is for you to actually kind of have a personal connection to the content that we're going over. And so, like I said, you're expected to keep up with the lectures and documentaries as they're assigned each week. They're designed to assess your learning and allow for your connection to the material. And so, like I mentioned earlier, these quizzes may include content from lecture and the documentary. So it's imperative that you watch both of those before you attempt the quiz. Each week, there will be 3 multiple choice questions to assess your understanding of the material, right? It also kind of helps with midterms and finals, just to kind of give a sense of what those questions will be like once you get to those points in the semester. There is also going to be 2 free response questions, and this is where we get that personal connection to the material. And these are open-ended, and there isn't really a prompt or a rubric for what I expect out of these, but I should reasonably gather that you've thought critically about the content, that you're trying to make personal connections, you're trying to compare and contrast to what we talk about, and that's really what I should reasonably gather. They should be at least 3 sentences, as is necessary for any kind of developed thought for things in this class. So again, 3 multiple choice questions, 2 free response for a total of 5 questions for 5 points. Quizzes are released on Mondays at midnight, and you have until Friday at midnight to do them. So again, 5 working days to do that. I don't want you to do things over the weekends, maybe besides watching lectures. The quizzes are found in Canvas under quizzes, and again, you have 1 school week to do these quizzes, so please make sure that you plan for it and do them on time. We have 3 papers throughout the semester, kind of more geared towards those like open-ended weekly questions. This is very much a reflective piece. And so you're going to be selecting 1 prompt and write a paper addressing a topic from the previous 4 weeks of class. And so essentially when these rubrics get released, you have 4 options to pick from, and you'll write your paper based on the questions to that prompt. And so the papers must be at least 3 pages long, will be graded by the extent in which you reflect and respond appropriately to your self-selected prompt. The prompt lists for each paper are going to be available on the previous Friday, with papers due the following Friday, aka you have 1 7-day week to write each paper. They are pretty fun, I think, in terms of how you go about writing these papers. They're very reflective, they're very applied questions, and hopefully the 3 pages won't really take up that much time for you all. Like I said before, the 24-hour no questions asked policy applies to papers, but please do try to get them in on time. I don't want you to be overwhelmed with a bunch of things in this class and beyond. The detailed rubric is on Canvas, basically what I'm looking for each of these papers, even though the prompts will be a little bit different. Basically, are you reflecting? Are you answering accurately to the time that you're writing about, and then putting the effort in that critical thought. Please upload papers to Canvas under assignments, and the papers that are due this semester is going to be due Friday, October 2nd, Friday, November 6th, and Friday, December 4th. And all of these are due at 11:59. That being said, I want to go over the AI policy with you directly. There are some ways in which you can utilize AI for your success in this class. You are able to use generative AI tools for brainstorming and refining your ideas, fine-tuning your research questions, and checking grammar and style. We'll go over that in a second. But there are ways in which AI is not permitted in this class. Impersonating you in various classroom contexts, completing group work not necessarily applied for this class, but again, using AI as a supplement to your personal lived experience. Using AI to find information on a topic, which we'll get into in a second. Drafting an outline to organize your thoughts, as is very different from brainstorming and fine-tuning questions. That is very different because this actually starts to organize your thoughts in a way that takes that agency away from you. And then, of course, using AI to write draft entire sentences, paragraphs, papers, write and complete assignments for you all. And so again, if you utilize any of these non-permissible uses of AI, that is considered plagiarism, as is outlined in the cheating and plagiarism and academic action policies located at the end of the syllabus for this class. Turnitin on Canvas does use an AI tracker that will be utilized for every paper turned in to scan for AI. That being said, it is not perfect. So if there's instances where AI is flagged and you didn't use it, I highly recommend, if you have any type of Google Doc, to turn on permissions to make sure that I could see like writing histories and track that. If you use Grammarly like I do as kind of a post-grammar assessment, checking grammar and style, but in the ways of making it more grammatically correct, you can do what they have called Grammarly authorship, which is basically just tracking that you're writing your own stuff and only using Grammarly to change out a few words every once in a while. So if you utilize those tools, please make sure that you have something set up where you can show that you wrote this paper, that you did your own thinking, that you utilized your own intuitions for this assignment and not just using AI. That being said, if you use AI, not only does it break our code of conduct for this class, but it also might hallucinate some of the facts that are necessary for these papers. So if you bring in examples from the past, as you will for this class, be sure to get facts from the textbook and or lecture. So those are the only two ways that are truly permissible in this class, because the internet might be inaccurate and AI literally might hallucinate facts from the past. So please be diligent in this class, making sure that we're learning true history, not rewritten history or whitewashed history, which can happen in certain spaces on the internet. So please make sure that what you're getting your information from is from the textbook, from the lecture, and really be diligent about where you get that information from. So again, if you have any questions about the AI policy, let me know. That these are the only ways in which AI will be allowed in this class for your success. We also have reflection videos, and so this is kind of in tandem with our midterm and exam in terms of where it is pacing-wise in the class. But essentially what this reflection video is a way for you to reflect on American sports history in a personal, meaningful way. The papers can be reflective, but it's more of a, compare and contrast research paper for history. This is really a way for us to reflect on how history impacts us directly. And so you're going to select either one historical figure or an event of significance covered in class and create a video essay about that person or event, how that person or event changed sport into what it is today, and why you selected that person or event. And really the goal for this assignment is for you to demonstrate and articulate an understanding of how sports history operates as a very powerful social institution shaped by and is currently shaping current culture, identity, power structures, inequality, even in today's world. And so this is a video, so you are going to be recording yourself speaking just as I'm doing for you today. You can use slides with a voiceover, you can incorporate relevant visuals if you wish, but at bare minimum, I must be able to see your face speaking on this video. And with that, although preparation is encouraged, right? I don't want you to go into this without any preparation, without any research that had been done to prepare for this. Canvas. Please don't just record yourself reading from a prompt. Really try to let this conversation be organic, be more natural in terms of personal connection and understanding, and points will be deducted if you're just reading off of your notes, if you're not even making eye contact with the camera to make it seem like you're really putting in the effort there. Your recorded presentation must be including both audio and video. Like I said, I must be able to see your face. I must be able to hear you speaking about this topic. And please upload your video to an MP4 format to Canvas under assignments. It will be able to handle it, but if you find that there are any issues, you can also upload it to YouTube and then put the YouTube link into Canvas, whatever modality works best for you. As long as I can see you speaking with visuals or not, as well as the audio with your reflection video. That being said, a 24-hour no questions asked policy also applies to your videos. There's a much more detailed rubric on Canvas, and your midterm reflection video is due October 16th, and your final reflection video is due December 11th. So let's get into a bit more detail about what I expect from this video. It's only about 5 to 7 minutes. I don't want it to be super long, but I want you to be very intentional and thoughtful behind these different areas of the prompt. So again, the first thing that you're going to do is you're going to select and review a person or event from history. This must be from the era that we're going to talk about in a second. And basically what I want you to do is I want you to review the main significant details about that person or event within the context of the class. Again, making sure that you're not getting stuff from outside of the class because the internet is inaccurate sometimes, as well as AI. So please make sure that what you get from this class comes from the textbook and or my lectures, and that's really what you use to kind of beef up your details and support for this section. For the midterm reflection video, you can only select a person or event that we discussed in class from 1450 to 1900. So that is what we'll be going over for the first half of class. And then for the final reflection video, you can only select a person or event that we discuss in class from 1900 to 2026. And again, we're going to be covering a lot of different things, and you're more than welcome to use the textbook if you want to have more detailed evaluation of this person or event. The second thing that you're going to be doing is discussing how your person or event has impacted sports today. And even if there are centuries between your selected person or event and now, there's always going to be a domino effect over their impacts to sport and sporting culture and how that changed stuff for people in the modern day in 2026. And so please describe that domino effect. You can also explain why people today should know about your person or event in the context of sport, of history, of culture, and it can really impact a lot of different things. And so again, it doesn't necessarily have to be about sport specifically. It can be about coaching, participation, management, economics, media, fandom, political policy, and those can all have an impact today, even if they started as something relatively innocuous, in the 1800s. And then finally, you're going to finish your video by talking about why you selected this person or event. Why did you feel drawn to this person or event? How did your understanding of this person or event evolve if you had heard about it before? And really kind of explain how or why this person or event impacted you personally. Why did you select this over the dozens of things that we're going to be covering each week? And why did you use it for this reflection video assignment? So again, let me know if you have any questions about this. And I look forward to seeing you in this new modality. That being said, this is the only extra credit opportunity for this class that kind of goes tandem with the reflection video assignment. And so extra credit postcards are something that we do in this class as an extra credit opportunity for you to be creative about your reflection video topic. And so students, if you decide to pursue this extra credit opportunity, will design a postcard about the person or event that they selected for their respective reflection video. And basically, as any postcard would be, the front has to be visually appealing with a tagline or something like greetings from insert chosen person or event. On the back side of the postcard, it must resemble a postcard in how it looks and include a brief 3 to 5 minute sentence summary of your person or event and its significance to American sports history. And so you can see here some examples. But I also have some printed examples for you all. And so If your postcard is extraordinary in terms of content, in terms of visual appeal, I will actually print them and hang them up in my office because I think this is a good kind of homage to this class, but also just to appreciate parts of sports history. So this one student did Mexico City, the Olympics in Mexico City in 1968. So again, you can kind of see the details in the back, but also the visual front. This person talked about the March Madness overturn that kind of happened in 2022, a little bit before then. This person did theirs on Caitlin Clark, so you can do it on a person or an event. And this person did theirs on Kobe. And so again, this has to be from class. You can't just choose a random person. That has to be from the person that you selected for your reflection video, which of course had to be covered within the context of this class. You're welcome to, again, take inspiration from these, the postcards that I just had. You can go to Canva. They have a bunch of templates that you can use. And there isn't really a lot of, requirements, restrictions. I want you to be as creative as you want. Postcards are worth anywhere from 1 to 5 or more points based on the amount of effort and detail. And again, these are the best that I got from last semester. So kind of just to set a expectation for things and ways to earn points in this assignment. So again, same exact due dates as your reflection video. The postcard must be due by the 16th of October, and the final postcard must be due by the 11th of December. So at the same time that you would turn in your reflection videos. Then there are 2 exams in this class. There's a midterm and a final. The midterm covers materials from weeks 2 to 7, so 1400s to 1900s. It includes 30 questions, multiple choice, true, false, matching questions, and some potential open-ended writing questions. But again, these are not interpretive. They will have correct answers. It's closed note and closed book. This is, of course, on Canvas, so you will only have 45 minutes to take it. I will be providing you with a study guide so that you can kind of fine-tune your studying for those respective exams. And the study guide for this semester will be released on October 9th, and the midterm on Canvas will be released on October 12th, and you'll have until October 19th to do that. Actually, that doesn't. Sorry, there was a typo on that, but your midterm is going to be due October 16th, the same day as your reflection videos and your extra credit postcard if you decide to pursue that opportunity. There are no makeup exams or taking exams early. Just like the quizzes, there are no late makeups for this unless you communicate with me with a valid university allowed excuse for absence. And again, when these things are due, so please plan accordingly to study and to set time aside to take them. That being said, the quizzes don't have a time limit, but the exams do. So please make sure that when you do start them, you're in a place with solid Wi-Fi, that you're able to, be in a space where you can really demonstrate your learning, just because I've had students lose out on Wi-Fi before, and that unfortunately has impacted their success in the class. The final is non-cumulative, so it covers materials from weeks 9 to 15. Same exact format, 30 questions, multiple choice, true, false, matching, some open-ended writing questions, but again, that do have correct answers and not necessarily interpretive. Closed note, closed book, it's only 45 minutes to take. Study guide for the final will be released on December 4th. You will have access to the final starting December 7th, and it's due December 11th. Just like the midterm, there's no making up exams, taking it early, taking it late, unless you communicate with me with a university allowed excuse. That being said, if you have BMAC accommodations, please do get that in as soon as possible. I do have to adjust the timelines for opportunities for you to take it in different modalities, so please try to get that in as soon as possible if that applies to you. Please review the syllabus for other university type policies. You're also more than welcome to scan this QR code for Beach Wellness. I also have it here. I also noticed that this year on Canvas, unless I just missed it in the previous semesters, but on our left side of our Canvas page, they have a stressed little chiclet at the bottom. So it allows us to see, different opportunities for us to receive help in different ways. And so talking about CAPS, basic needs, student health services, as well as the Beach Wellness Code, which kind of takes you to everything that is afforded to you as a student here at CSULB. We also have the Office of Belonging and Inclusion. Again, we're going to be talking about really sensitive topics in this class. So if you want to be with folks that are of different, ethnic or racial or identity communities, please feel free to check out the Office of Belonging and Inclusion. OBI is great. They want to create a safe space for students on campus, really allowing them to learn more about different groups, exploring their own identities. And so feel free to check them out. They're really great. They have different resources on campus. With the USU being down, it gets kind of sticky where they're able to meet, where they're not. Room space is a very, very hot commodity right now. But again, I think it's a wonderful place for you all to find community in this class and beyond. And so just to go over the calendar for the semester, like I said, the midterm content, we're going to be coming over between 1400 and 1900, and for the final 1900 to 2026. And so we're going to have a lot of opportunities to learn about a lot of different things. But first and foremost, we did have an assigned chapter this week, but it's really just kind of a background for us to kind of set the stage for what this class is really going to be about. And it's really about acknowledging that culture and history go hand in hand. You can't really talk about history without talking about culture. And so this is the first chapter that we are assigned, Edson chapter 2, really talking about sport as being this microcosm of society, that sport is very unique because sport as an entity is really reflective of a lot of these values that American society has kind of always had. But it's not to say that it's a passive reflection of these values, that American sport can be used as a catalyst to change these things. In sport, we're going to see many instances throughout this class has been used as a very efficient medium to challenge these power structures, to get people talking about racism, to allow folks to understand that women athletes can and are as successful as male athletes in different ways. And so this is a very cyclical relationship, as we're going to see in this class, that throughout American history, sport isn't necessarily reflective and passive all of the time, but it can also be causational to initiate that change. And so we find too that even though this cycle happens throughout American history, there are things and there are characteristics that have kind of stood the test of time throughout our American sporting histories. That there are some common characteristics between sport and American society. We love this high degree of competitiveness. We kind of expect winners in America. This idea of meritocracy, that if you work hard enough that you get to achieve anything that you want. But of course, we're going to see that American meritocracy, the American dream, is kind of a lie for a lot of people coming and living in the United States. And so this degree of competitiveness doesn't necessarily equate to success in a lot of ways in and out of sport. An emphasis in materialism. We're going to see many instances in which sport wasn't really commercialized for a long time. But once they started to make a lot of money off of sport, it became an institution for economic prosperity. So this materialism, this gross attraction that we have towards stuff, towards money, towards power, really allowed sport to become the power pillar that it is today. We also have pervasiveness of racism, and I would argue more than Edson would, sexism, ableism, ageism, classism. All of these different power structures have been fought over and contested since the 1400s in and out of sport. Sport is just a very small, digestible piece of how people interact with one another in the larger scale things. And finally, kind of to wrap all this up, that sport isn't a sanctuary. Even though we see sport as this fair and just place with rules and decorum, it's not. We see deviance many times throughout sport, as we see deviance many times throughout American culture and American sports history. And so while sport is a microcosm, a smaller example of American history, it's not just passive, right? We're going to see many instances in which sport is reflective, but also causational in that change as to what it is today. And so I really like this quote by Dave Zirin. We're going to see Dave in a couple of our documentaries throughout the semester. But the idea that sport has often acted as a reflection of the national life. At different times, it has also been a fetter holding back the tide of change. In other instances, it has been a taser sending an electric jolt into the body politic, acknowledging the cyclical relationship that, sometimes it's held back change. It's just been a reflection of these values, of these power structures. But then on the flip side, it can be used for that agency, for that conversation, for institutional change. And so please feel free to email me if you have any questions. I'm really excited for this class. Like I said, I think this is a very unique lens in which we can kind of look through sport, physical activity, exercise. So I hope you're as excited as I am. Feel free to email me or join me for office hours if you have any questions or concerns. And next week, we're going to start with 350 years of sport during the colonial period from 1400 to 1750. And without further ado, I'll go ahead and end it there. Thank you all for a great first day, and I hope to hear from some of you if you have questions, concerns, and I'm looking forward to a great class. All right, folks, bye.